Yeah, this is just a brief overview of the Solarize Meridian project, which is being sponsored by the Meridian Energy Team. The Meridian Energy Team has been around for many years now. And it basically is Leroy Harvey is our kind of township staff person. And then there's a number of us residents who kind of work with the township on energy efficiency and renewable energy kind of projects and programs. And some of these names are probably familiar to people in the audience. Well, what is Solarize Meridian? It's actually a program that we're borrowing from the city of Ann Arbor, which has had great success with it. It's basically neighbors helping neighbors make an informed decision about buying a solar system, because it's a big investment and there's a lot of questions, and also helping find a solar installer, because that can always be an issue. And then also getting a fair price and a group discount, because let's say you have 30 people attend a meeting, a Solarize Meridian meeting, and maybe half of them get an assessment, a proposal, and let's say out of that number, 10 decide to go ahead and buy. So basically, of that 10, it adds another 1% discount for everybody. So in this example, I use 8. 8 group members decide to purchase, then everybody would get an 8% discount, with a maximum discount of 15%. Now that's on top of there's still a 26% federal tax credit in place. That's good for this year. And so let's say you get the 8%, so plus the 26%, you're getting a 34% discount basically on your purchase. So you should be able to get a good price. This is just a basic overview of the program. The host selects a solar installer for their home. Now, a lot of the people doing at least the initial meetings, and we have 8 plans so far for this spring and summer, a lot of them already have solar systems, and so they don't have to go through that process. But we have a few that don't already have solar systems, so they'll go through the process of selecting an installer who will work with them on their meeting. Now, the host promotes the meeting, holds a meeting with their installer, and there's an energy team member who's kind of assigned to work with the host to kind of just be a helping hand. Now, the attendees obtain solar proposals and bids to decide whether or not to buy solar. And then, like I mentioned, the number of purchases in the group determines the discount. And of course, there'll be deadlines for a week for the meeting I'm going to be doing. After I have a meeting, and mine's going to be virtual, attendees will have about a week to decide whether to get a proposal from the solar installer. And then after the solar installer gets back to them with a proposal, they'll have 2 weeks in order to decide whether to buy or not. Because we have to, in order to really get the benefits of a group purchase, a group discount, the process has to move along fairly quickly. Now, we worked out with like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing the first meeting Monday, March 21st. It'll be virtual. Some of the future meetings will be in person, but my installer, who is Absolute Solar, which is a local installer, and actually Absolute has done most of the projects for the township. We've worked out with them a pricing scheme, basically. And, it's based on size. The smaller system, as you can see, $3.10 a watt. A real big system gets into $2.95 a watt. There's economies of scale, so the installer can offer a lower price per watt. Now, dollars per watt don't mean a lot to most people, and so we have this chart here, which kind of gives you a better idea of what the bottom line is going to be with respect to a price. And so a smaller system, let's say about a 4 kilowatt, using that $3.10, we end up with a price of $12,400. Let's assume you have 10 participants in the group who decide to go ahead. So we're going to get a 10% discount. And then you take away the 26% federal tax credit. So you're bound to down to about $8,258 for a smaller system. As you can see, what I'll call a medium-sized system, 8 kilowatts, is almost $16,000, and 12 kilowatts is up to $23,576. So it's a significant investment for folks, and that's why I think they need to get a lot of information. They need to ask a lot of questions, and I think it helps that you have a solar owner basically providing some of the help and information, because those of us who'll be doing workshops, we're not making anything out of a sale. We're just kind of doing it to kind of help our neighbors, and I think that adds some credibility as opposed to a salesperson trying to make a pitch, like you should really do this, sort of thing. So we're marketing of the meeting. I'm in Keystone Subdivision, which is I am actually on Bircham Drive between Okemos Road and Park Lake. And so my neighborhood has a Facebook page, which I'll be using for promotion. Going to use Nextdoor, which some of you are familiar with, to spread the word. Homeowners Association email list, going to try to take advantage of those. Flyers, just chatting with people. I've already chatted with a couple people on my daily walks. They ask about my solar system, and I kind of talk about it and then mention that my meeting will be coming up in March. And we do have the Green Meridian Facebook page too, which I plan to kind of use that too to kind of promote the workshop. Holding the meeting, whatever the host wants to do, virtual or in person or some hybrid. Since I'm doing it pretty early, I wasn't going to risk problems with the weather, so I'm going to do virtual. About an hour. The host will kind of do some introductions, explain why they went solar, talk about the discount schedule, talk about how this installer was selected, and then the energy team member talk about just some very solar basics, but not a lot of detail, because otherwise we'll be talking for hours. Federal tax credits, which is important. The utility buyback rate for excess kilowatt hours, because in the typical, in the summer, your system may produce more power than you use. And then, you basically put it on the grid and the utility a bill credit. Typically, you'll be using the bill credit in the winter when you're not producing as much power. And we'll talk about various financing options. And then the installer will talk about the product offering, the panels, the racking, the inverters, talk about the dollars per watt, what could affect pricing. Because, there's a lot of options there, and we're going to try to have basically a basic system, but then talk about some of the add-ons. An add-on that some people are interested in is batteries. And of course, that's, will be a significant additional cost. And we'll talk about the deadlines. And then there'll be a lot of time for Q&A. After the meeting, attendees will be asked if they want to get a proposal. In Ann Arbor, it's been about half the attendees have asked for a proposal. Installer visits a home and makes an assessment, provides a specific proposal based on the size of the solar array and any add-ons that the homeowner might decide they're interested in. And then the attendee has a deadline to decide to purchase and get the group discount. In my case, it'll be 2 weeks after they get a proposal from their installer. Then the energy team member are going to maintain some communication with both the installer and the attendees to track progress, because we want to see how we're doing, of course. And we want to, if there's any communication issues or other problems, we want to be as helpful as we can. And then basically the participants get the solar systems. And that's a brief presentation. Where we are now is we did a host orientation on Monday evening. I think I mentioned that we have at this time 8 meetings planned for this spring and summer. That host orientation was recorded so that if you know of anybody who might want to be a host, for one of these meetings. The recording's available for them to watch. And then I can follow up with them individually to see if they have any questions about being a host. I mentioned too that the first meeting we'll be doing is I'll be doing my neighborhood and kind of neighboring neighborhoods. Let's see, Monday, March 21st at 7 o'clock. And like I mentioned, I think my installer I used for my second system was Absolute. So they'll be doing part of the presentation and be the installer that's available to give the discount depending on the number of purchases. Now one thing that, people who attend a meeting might wonder, well, is this really a good price? And so, of course, people are encouraged that, maybe they want to get a second opinion. And so, they can contact other solar installers, get proposals, and then kind of decide if the group discount is a good deal and the price from my installer is a good deal. Now they'll have to do that fairly quickly because once they get their, in fact, people want to do that, will want to do it almost immediately because of the deadlines, if they want to make a comparison. I think, solar installers are busy, so whether you can, how quickly you can get a proposal from another supplier, another installer is hard to know. We do have a list of, I think it's 4 solar installers who've expressed an interest in working on this program and understand that part of the program is the discount. So that's, we do have some folks who, are kind of tuned in to what we're doing here, and most of them participated in the Ann Arbor program. So that's, they're familiar with the concept. So let me end there and see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, John. That was an excellent overview. And you might have to unmute yourself if you want to talk. You can also raise your hand using the reactions icons. But looks like Bill McConnell raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks for that overview, John. Couple of questions. I remember in one of those My Solar Story series meetings, hearing from a manufacturer up north who does ground mount systems that track the sun. Are they by any chance one of the participating groups, or do they not install?
They're not one of the groups that is on our list. And what's happening is anybody who's a meeting host will be using their own installer unless their own installer for some reason doesn't want to participate. But that's right. Our program is kind of based on the idea that most of the systems in the township would be rooftop. But ground mount is a good option, especially, if folks have a decent sized yard and have a sunny spot. And so one thing I think will happen in this program, I hope, is that people will go to the meetings and get a lot of good information, and then they might get a proposal from the solar installer, and they might say, I heard about this ground mount system with tracking up north that a friend of mine had, and I'm wondering about that. And, we'd encourage them to contact that company, get a proposal from them. They might lose out on the group discount, but still the important thing is that they would get the type of system they would like or work best for them.
Okay, great. Can you give us a URL where we can get information? One of my neighbors said she would be interested in hosting, and if you can, okay. She said, please send me the information. So if you can make that available, I'll forward it to her.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll send you we have the host orientation recording posted on the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association YouTube channel.
Perfect.
And so what I'll do is I'll send you the link to that specific presentation, and then ideally the person will kind of look at that video, and then if interested can follow up with me, and I can do a one-on-one to answer any questions they have.
Thanks.
Oh, Ned.
First of all, I'm laughing at Bill McConnell's background because that is a non-fossil powered vehicle that he was just enjoying a little while ago.
I assume that's Lake Lansing, right?
That is Lake Lansing. Yes, we had a wonderful weekend. That particular weekend, the ice was just right and there wasn't too much snow. Anyway, my question is this: so it's a long story, and exactly how we ended up sitting on solar panels in our basement for almost 10 years before we got them up on the side of our house is its own saga. But we just got them installed, and so I'm very excited about that. But it seems that the hang up right now is getting consumers to connect us. And so your timeline sort of stopped at install. And so I was wondering about the sort of hookup. I mean, the electronics are all set. I mean, the electrical system is all set up. It's a matter of somebody flipping the switch. And so I was wondering, how often is that a barrier, and what is the procedure to kind of push the process?
Excellent question. The good news is that it's better with Consumers Energy than DTE. So if you were in a DTE customer, it would be even more of a potential problem. It can be a problem with Consumers Energy. One thing that happens, and this is what makes it hard to give a good timeline, is the installer will make the contact for the customer with Consumers Energy. And so they're familiar with working with all the staff there. And then they'll be talking about an interconnection agreement. And you're right, that shouldn't take very long, but it can. And so that's just one thing that's a big unknown with respect to the timing of things. Yeah, so, you know, what can I say? Sometimes it seems to go better sometimes than others. I've heard people say that with consumers it went fine. Other people have said, "Oh my God, I had to wait forever."
Is there a, I mean, is there a sort of a direct path from the customer to consumers to sort of nudge the process?
Oh, absolutely.
Or is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I assume, did you or your installer already did the interconnection application, right?
Oh yeah. As far
Yeah.
as I know, all the paperwork's done.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want to follow up, you should do it directly with the whoever got the interconnection application. And you know, there's always the option too that if it gets if you're not happy with the situation, you can always contact the Public Service Commission to help them nudge Consumers Energy. So, you know, if you ever get to that point, hopefully you won't, you know, I can give you a contact at the Public Service Commission who you can express your concerns to. Because sometimes that works better than making a formal complaint. You can always make a formal complaint to the Public Service Commission, but oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I don't wish to do anything more bureaucratic than necessary. I just want to turn the switch on, damn it. The things are on the side of our house, and
yeah,
I want them to be doing something.
Yeah, so find out from your installer who is the staff person, the Consumers Energy staff person who got the application, and follow up with that person.
Okay, I'll do
And
that. All right.
if you have a problem, I'll track down who the person is in Consumers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you got those out of the basement. Hey.
Yeah. Someday I'll tell you the story of how it happened. But anyway, at least we got them up.
Bruce raised his hand.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, John. The basic install, that does not include a battery system. It's just the inverter and the panels.
Yes. And
Okay.
it can be a ground mount, but the basic assumption is that most people will be looking at a rooftop system. What can happen though is, you know, at the meeting itself, kind of a basic system will be described, the panel, the racking, the inverter. And then when if the meeting attendee asks for the proposal, when the solar installer gets to the home, there could be a discussion of, maybe I've heard about ground mount. Maybe we should do a ground mount in my situation. And they'll be able to give you a proposal for that. It can include tracking. It can include batteries. Now a ground mount will be a little more expensive, but still that might be the best option for a homeowner.
Other questions? Again, if you're new to these conversations, they're every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And usually we have an open format where we can talk about any topic of interest. Once a month or so, we will have more of a formal presentation or educational section and invite speakers. So if you have a speaker you'd like to invite in the future, let us know and we'll promote that. And there's a couple of questions. I think it was Ned and then Cecilia.
Go ahead, Cecilia.
Yes, hello. I have not been able to attend your sessions here for several weeks. I've been working with the COVID testing for the schools here in Okemos, but and a couple of other little projects, but I'm glad to be back. And I did have a question. Did you, and I'm sorry I missed the whole presentation. I hope to catch it on the rebound there. But did you talk about what types of permits that are needed from the township to put these in, and what type of activity or concerns you might have with homeowner association or subdivision covenant of deeds sort of documents?
Those are two very good questions. And Carolyn had mentioned before about being in a condominium association. Carolyn, I have some information for you related specifically to the condominiums. So if you want to email me, johnsarver3@gmail.com, I'll send you some information about the project that's kind of down the street from me to kind of give you, Joe Hess, who's in that condominium area, did a presentation on YouTube, so I can give you the link to that, and we can follow up, and it could be, try to help as much as I can.
Thank you. That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, with respect to the permits, yeah, an electrical permit is required and a building permit from the township. And from what I've heard, there has been no issues with getting inspections done by the township. We're in communication with a lot of solar installers, and I always ask the question, how's it going? And the good news is that I haven't heard one complaint about the getting permits from the township. Now, the Consumers Energy Interconnection could be a different issue. It is a potential problem with homeowners associations, especially condominium associations, because the roof, right, is literally owned by the association and isn't owned by the homeowner. But I know Leroy and I got an inquiry from somebody, I forget the subdivision, where their homeowners association said, no, you can't do it. And she kind of followed up with them because they didn't seem like they were even given a reason. They just didn't like the idea. And apparently she did get an installation done, and had to kind of talk to their association board. And so that is potentially an issue. Not always. It just depends on how restricted the covenants are and how the neighborhood association does their process. So I don't know, do you have any follow-up questions, Cecilia, or is that?
No, that I just wanted to kind of know what that process was, because you know, it's a kind of a chicken and eggs thing. How long does it take to get these, the permits? How long, you know, who do you have to go before? And it may be that your subdivision board is the longest concern. Most of the subdivisions were invented before solar panels, so they may not, it may not be addressed directly, and so they you know, they'll have to deal with it. But I was just kind of curious about that part. Yeah.
You know, I think like most, you know, if you do have a neighborhood association and you have restrictive covenants, my advice, of course, is to talk to the board early on and just explain what you're trying to do. And usually being proactive can make a big difference, you know, with respect to kind of explaining what's going to be done and how it's going to look and answer their questions kind of before somebody starts complaining. Ned?
Yeah, Mike, I had two sort of broader questions. One is, do you know roughly what's the installation level within Meridian Township? I mean, just sort of how many panels are up and, you know, what wattage is being estimated, of course, is installed at this point, both privately and publicly.
Yeah, I think it's, I just was looking at that number the other day. I think it's 79 that we know of, because the assessment department at the township has been really helpful in kind of helping us identify, you know, how many installations there are in the township. Of those 79, most are residential. You know, and we have a big one that hardly anybody knows about. You know, Target has a like 300 kilowatt system on their roof that I think is a secret. You can't see it, of course, from the parking lot. But now the average size, you know, I would guess that the average size is somewhere around 8 to 10 kilowatts for residential. But I'm just guessing. I haven't actually, we have those numbers and I could do an average, but the township has, boy, we've got now on the service center 142 kilowatts, and which nobody probably is able to see, but the one in front of the township hall is 20 kilowatts. So that's that's kind of a typical size for most small commercial buildings, 20 kilowatts. And actually, the township just put out an RFP to add 40 kilowatts to the public safety building, because the township is making really good progress on their goal of 100% renewable energy for electricity for their own operations. So that's, I think the one that's out now would be, I think, number 5. Does that sound right, Leroy? To be the 5th installation. We got the one at the farm market.
Yeah, we also have a small system at the Harris Nature Center, which was our first. In fact, I'm going to have to go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just, so those, let's say when you say it's a 20 kilowatt system, the actual yield is something like what, a 20% of the rated number?
It's correct.
In kilowatt hours. I mean, you know, in other words, yeah,
right.
Continuous. So the other part of my question was, and this sort of goes back to Bill's question, I just have no idea what the difference in sort of yield, sort of efficiency of tracking versus non-tracking systems is. I was just curious about that because, you know, I ride by the Bircham one every day, basically, and but that's a fixed system with the fixed, all the angles and everything are fixed, and I was just curious how much additional production can be gained by, and sort of also, I suppose, what the energy cost of driving the panels is, but probably minimal compared to the yield.
Well, there's, of course, depends on who you talk to. If you talk to somebody selling a tracker system, they talk about you get an extra, I don't know, 30, 40%, which is probably not realistic. But You know, a lot of solar installers have basically told their customers that if you have enough room, just buy more panels, and that'll be cheaper than putting in a tracker. But we're at a point, I think, where the trackers are becoming cost effective. And so I'm starting to see more and more trackers with bigger installations, you know, like utility scale or even, you know, so that's the economics are changing, you know, as we speak. And so whether it's a good idea or not, I guess depends on your situation. I think for the typical residential application, of course, you can't have trackers on your roof. It's probably not cost effective yet. Now, when you get into commercial and utility scale, I think the trackers are becoming worthwhile. So that's, you know, kind of what I know about it. Now, there is an interesting tracker at the Detroit Zoo, which is, I think of course it's expensive, but what it is, it's like a big podium. And when the sun comes out, basically the solar system kind of emerges from the podium and kind of becomes like a big flower. And then it kind of points toward the sun and attracts the sun during the day. And then when the sun goes down, it kind of folds up and goes into the podium. So it's really neat, but not cheap.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Now I got to go to the zoo.
Yeah, me too. Sarah.
So when you say residential is on average 8,000 to 10,000 kilowatts, is that then usually enough to manage their whole usage, to cover their whole electrical, or is that like half? Or I mean, how does that end up working?
Boy, you know, it depends how much electricity you use. David Arnasti, who's in Hazlitt, has a 4 kilowatt system that provides 80% of his power. Okay.
Okay.
However, solar installers have been putting systems into homes that are 15 kilowatts. Okay, which is over 3 times what David is using. You know, and of course, these people have bigger homes, but also they use a lot of electricity, and so, you know, then there's the whole issue of do you have a heat pump that uses electricity? Are you going to charge your electric vehicle? But I'm kind of like David. I'm kind of maybe frugal because I've got a system that's between my two systems, it's about 3.5 kilowatts, and it provides about 2/3 of my power. But I'm not. I'm pretty cheap and frugal. I turn off lights every chance I get. So yeah, there's some people that use a lot of electricity, and so they would be probably looking at that 8-10 kilowatt system.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything goes here, so no stupid questions, as you know.
Yes, there we are. I did have a question or a comment. When you have a tracking system, now my brother, who lived in Massachusetts and put in a system on his farmlet, had 2 huge banks of panels. So he was in the probably 10 to 15 range. So there were 2 sets of panels, one on top of the other, and as far as tracking goes, what he did is he went out there and he turned them up and down in Massachusetts. They didn't go side to side. They were fixed one way. But is that what you meant by tracking system, or are you more the sunflower thing over at the zoo?
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned, because there's 2 types of tracking. You know, the seasonal tracking, which you just mentioned, it can be done, you know, just by a homeowner if they have a ground mount system. So that obviously in the winter, the the sun is lower in the sky. And so you change the angle of your panels to kind of capture the winter sun. And then, you change the angle in the summer. So that's obviously one type of tracking, which can be pretty simple, in the sense that a homeowner can just go out there and kind of change the angle, crank it up. And the other tracking system is the daily tracking from east to west to kind of capture more of the sun. And you can have systems that do both types of tracking.
Oh,
And there are some systems that are actually the Traverse City one that was mentioned. If it's the one that I'm familiar with, uses GPS to do the tracking. And others use different mechanisms to kind of know where the sun is, like a liquid that heats up. And in heating it, it kind of moves the solar panels from east to west. So there's different ways to do the tracking, and there are simple ways too. I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah. Well, yeah, and he did that. And then he also sold his extra electricity back to his power grid over there. So that was nice for him because it helped pay for the installation of the system over the course of several years.
Yeah, we have that here in Michigan too, but it's changed since the people started putting in solar systems. At one point, excess electricity that you gave to the utility, you got a 1-to-1 bill credit. And basically you were getting a bill credit at the same rate they charged you. But then the utilities didn't like that for some reason. Now the system is basically, if you have excess power and you give it to your utility, they'll give you a bill credit approximately about a half of the retail rate here in Michigan. Now, which obviously is not as good. And actually DTE just proposed to the Public Service Commission that half the retail rate, they want to cut it in half again. So the utilities like solar and wind, but they want to own it themselves. They don't really want us homeowners to actually have systems. They'd prefer to kind of have their own systems, earn a return on their investment, and kind of control things. At least that's my perspective. Yeah.
We have
So
about
that-
another 10 minutes or so.
Quick question then? Oh.
Coincidentally, we are going to be doing a kind of an invitation to contractors who will be installing a system here at the township in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to have to leave, but go ahead, Brian.
I've seen solar systems in northern Canada where we fished, and my question, you've talked a lot about the panels and tracking systems. You haven't mentioned batteries. The battery technology, my understanding, lagged behind the solar technology, but now batteries have caught up. You can get away with a smaller wattage system if you can store the power, which is probably what you should think about if you're in Michigan, is again my understanding based on presentations I've seen other things. Can you address how much do you have battery storage in your system, and does that, or are you just talking about panel costs?
Exactly. We're talking about the panels, the inverters, and the racking. And this is one of those deals, like it just depends. Now, if you're the first solar systems that I kind of heard about, this to go back to the 1970s, there was some cabin in the woods and there was no electrical hookup at all. And so you ended up having a small solar system, a small wind system, probably a propane generator, because that was cheaper than actually trying to connect with the utility. But battery prices have gone down significantly. So I think about half of the systems now that are put in Michigan include batteries. Now, the primary reason that is because the companies are pushing batteries so they make more money. And it can be a good thing because, like in my situation, I don't get many outages. And so, and I don't have a lot of differences in my rates from during the day and at night sort of thing. So it wouldn't be justifiable in my situation. But I have talked to people that basically they have almost regular outages. And as soon as you start talking about having outages, and maybe you got a lot of meat in the freezer, or maybe you got medical equipment, boy, that battery backup is really valuable. What a lot of people don't appreciate too is that most of us who have grid tied systems, if there's a brownout or lose power, our systems can't produce any power either. It's connected to the grid and it basically shut down. So, I lose power and basically I've got a power producer on my roof, but I can't use it. So the only way you can make that work to deal with outages is if you do have batteries, but they're still expensive, but boy, the prices have gone down a lot. So it's just depends.
You can also, some inverters that I've seen, set them up almost like a UPS, where there would be a pass-through for the power coming in from the utility. But if that cuts off, it automatically switches over to either solar or your battery backup, whatever you have. And the battery units I've seen, like server rack batteries, lithium iron phosphate, those can get down into the very low dollar per kilowatt range. So I can't see an advantage for me anyway, to not having a battery.
Yeah, now one thing too that homeowners will be that are going through the Solarize Meridian program, you may need if you're thinking about getting batteries in the future, but not maybe right now, it may be an issue of the type of inverter you get so that you can accommodate batteries in the future. So those, of course, are all kind of issues that might come up when the solar installer goes to the specific home and kind of talks to the homeowner about what their particular interests are. Are they, maybe they don't want to invest in batteries now, but are thinking about it because prices will probably continue to go down. Or maybe they got a lot of outages and they should put in a battery right now, just depending on their situation. And there are different types of batteries too, right?
We actually have a backup generator, but it runs on natural gas. And actually, I was trying to figure out what would happen to the income the input from the solar panels if that switched over. Presumably they would still generate and the generator would just do less work. But remember when we actually had the gas, I've forgotten exactly how it happened, but there was some problem down in the Detroit area with the gas distribution system in the middle of winter. And it did really highlight, first of all, of course, it's a fossil resource and the less we use it, the better. But also the fact that even those pipelines are not things that we can absolutely count on. So yeah, I really like the idea of local production and being able to use it even if the grid is off.
There was some sort of fire in the Detroit area that kind of caused some problems with the natural gas pipelines. And of course, Texas had a terrible problem with that winter weather where they weren't prepared for the cold, and natural gas power plants couldn't get natural gas and they were kind of shut down. And the biggest problem with that Texas kind of brownout was the natural gas power plants weren't working because of problems with the pipelines.
Supply, yeah, right. So along those lines of temperature and so forth, what are the requirements for batteries? Do they have to be kept? How can you just store them outside and it's okay if they get down to -20 or something?
Well, my understanding is you want them inside. That'll decrease their capabilities for them to get cold.
Yeah, my phone sometimes dies when I'm on a bike ride because of the temperature. So,
Well, and also the, the electric vehicles, because in cold weather, they don't have the same range as they do in the summer. And it
right.
basically the cold with the batteries means that you're not gonna drive as much as far as you could in the summer.
How about one more question before I stop the recording? And then I'll remind people that if they have follow-up questions, they can email John or I. Put our emails in the chat window. But thank you, John, for being here today. And you've been involved with the energy team for over a decade. And thank you
That
for your
long?
service to the township. It's pretty remarkable. So really appreciate it. Any other questions? Looks like you all have the answers that you need. We are going to be promoting Solarize Meridian and some of the workshops in the weeks to come. So stay tuned, and so glad to see some new people popping in, and join us again next week if you have if you'd like to participate in the open dialogue where anything goes.
Thanks very much.